Just 6 weeks into my freshman year of college, a little something happened that changed me from a typical 18-year-old all-American college freshman into a little more the person you see in front of you today. When I was on my first weekend home from college, I hooked up with 3 friends that I had made at church camp, and on a Saturday night, after going to a St. Louis Blues hockey game, my friends and I were going home and got struck broadside by another car. I wish I could tell you that I remember all of the details of that crash. However, the details have thankfully been erased from my mind. When I turned and looked out that window as we pulled into an intersection, I saw a pair of headlights about that far from my face. And that quick, those lights went out. I will spare you the details of what I can remember from laying in the intersection when I came to feeling all of the bones in my face crushed. And let's just suffice it to say that I can tell you what a mixture of blood and gasoline tastes like. And I can remember laying there in the intersection, face down in the concrete, thinking that I was going to die. It's not a pleasant thought. And luckily and obviously, that did not happen. The paramedics got to the scene, scooped me up, rushed me to the closest level 1 trauma center, which was at Barnes Jewish Hospital in St. Louis, and they pulled me into the emergency room where the trauma team immediately went to work on me. My memories of being in the emergency room that night are pretty sketchy, but the one very, very strong memory I have was that anytime I would come to consciousness, I would enter a world that was filled with pain and terror and darkness. And in that world of pain and terror and darkness, the only thing that gave me any comfort was the fact that somebody was holding my right hand. And I could tell that this hand that held mine belonged to a female, and anytime I would stir just a little bit, that hand would squeeze mine, and I would squeeze that hand back in recognition. And then the owner of that hand would say the same things over and over throughout the night. She would say, "Marcus, my name is Jennifer. You were in a car accident. You're in the hospital." Bare bones information, right? That's all I could take. But then Jennifer would consistently repeat the 2 most compassionate words I think that any human being can say to another. Throughout that night, as she held my hand, she just kept whispering over and over, "I'm here. I'm here, Marcus. I'm here." I didn't even know where here was, but I knew that in this world that had been turned inside out, upside down, and bludgeoned, I knew that I was not alone. I think we can all relate to this idea, but I'll spell it out specifically. Simple human presence is the cornerstone of caregiving, correct? But I take that a step further. I say that simple human presence is the very foundation of our humanity. When you, as a human being, can recognize suffering and vulnerability and pain in another person and be present for that person and empathetic, that is essentially what separates we humans from everyone else in the animal kingdom, is that gift of simple human presence. So the question has to become then, who was Jennifer? And that's a bit of a difficult question to answer, because for 20 years, I knew nothing of Jennifer. Never knew her last name, never knew her position in the emergency room. I knew nothing about this individual who stayed with me on what was the very worst night of my life. So let me take it back in time. About 3 years ago, I was invited to keynote for the very institution that saved my life, for the facility called Barnes Jewish Hospital there in St. Louis. This is a very large facility, 1,300 licensed beds, well over 10,000 employees. And they couldn't get everybody into one room for a speech, so they ended up booking me to speak 5 times a day, 5 days in a row. I'm not even gonna lie, by the end of that, I was tired. But on the second day of being there, I got a little renewed energy when after I got done giving a presentation, and the patient experience director of the hospital came up to the stage and said some words that I will never forget. She said, "Marcus, we've got a surprise for you. We found Jennifer." And for the first time in 2 decades, I finally got to hold her hands again and say thank you. It was absolutely one of the most magical moments of my life. And as you can probably imagine, I had a million questions for Jennifer, and my first question was, well, who were you back then? Jennifer said, well, at the time, I was a 20-year-old patient care tech working here in the emergency room. And as a 20-year-old patient care tech, Jennifer didn't have time to have years and years of experience under her belt. She didn't have time to go through years of higher education. She didn't have a whole alphabet soup after her name. She just knew, human being to human being, what I needed more than anything was simple human presence. Presence is the greatest gift we can give to another human being. The best part of this story wasn't just being reintroduced to Jennifer, but the best part of this story was the fact that my wife was there, got a 2-minute heads up that this was going to be happening, and that gave her just enough time to whip out her trusty iPhone, and she was able to catch our reunion on video. And if you want to see that video, you can go to imheremovement.org, imheremovement.org, and if you can make it through the Marcus Meets Jenny video without crying, you are a stronger person than I am. What I learned soon after that first night with Jennifer was not only that I had been struck blind immediately, totally, and permanently, but I also learned that I had received what is called a Lefort 3 fracture, which means that every bone from my hairline through my chin had been shattered. What I learned quickly was that I was going to be facing hundreds of hours of reconstructive facial surgery. That was the beginning. The middle part of this story came after my first facial reconstruction, 25-hour-long surgery, and the first person I met post-op was a nurse named Barb. And in 3 minutes, Barb became one of the greatest people I had ever met. I very much understand that in this world of healthcare, we're pressed for time. Those of you who have done externships, those of you who have worked in medical environments, you know that there is one thing that is scarce in healthcare, and that is enough time. But just by Barb coming into the room, she introduced herself, she shook my hand as if there was nothing wrong with me, and she said, "Marcus, my name is Barb. I'm a nurse here in the ICU, and I get to take care of you for the next 8 hours." Did you catch that word? I get to take care of you. Graduates, you get to do this work of healthcare. You get to be the Jennifer for some other people who are suffering. You get to do this sacred work of caregiving. And you may ask the question, well, Marcus, what do you mean by sacred work? Is there anything more sacred in this world than taking care of the ill and the injured and the dying? I don't think so. Friends, you get to do this work. And I hope you can remember, number one, that the greatest gift we can give another human being is our presence. I hope you will always remember that we get to do this work. And I hope on those days when your coworkers are a pain, and maybe your kids are a pain, and maybe your spouse is a pain, on those days that you really don't feel like going into work, I hope you will remember we get to do this sacred work. Now, graduates, I got to tell you, after hearing our first 3 student speakers this morning, I'm not even sure I should be at this microphone, because those 3 individuals voiced their adversity and their story. And guess what? There are 900 stories sitting in this audience today of the things that you have overcome, the incredible adversity and obstacles that life has thrown at you, and guess what? You beat it. You beat it. And for the commitment that you have shown to your education, for the dedication that you have shown by spending those hours and hours studying, for the absence that you have had to take time away from your family to be sure that you can accomplish this goal of your academic pursuits, I hope you'll take a little time to pat yourselves on the back, because that is an awesome accomplishment. And for you graduates who have chosen to go into this sacred field of caregiving, please know that you have my congratulations and my thanks, because it is people just like you who are the reason that people like me are alive today. Graduates, thank you guys so much. Families, thank you for taking care of your graduates. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you.